Hello, everybody out there on YouTube Chessland, and thanks again for joining me, Stephen Sturgill, on my Chess TV channel. And today we are looking at the King's Indian classical system that I have rarely done videos on. I think I've done maybe one, so it's time to give another one on the classical setup, which is a very good one, or otherwise it would no longer be played. But it is probably the most popular at the Grandmaster level. Although you do occasionally see other King's Indian systems for white rolled out. So, what makes this one special is that this is a sharp, trappy line that traps one of black's bishops, and after munching on it for free, basically goes on to have a smashing, crushing advantage that doesn't ever let up. So let's see what happens. Of course, the standard opening is D4. You can start with other move orders, obviously, and then end up in a King's Indian, but we're not going to go through that. So, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, preparing castles, potentially. e4, d6, very common in that position. Black could have castled and then played d6 or some other variation. Knight f3, which this could still deviate into another totally different line of the King's Indian. You could sort of almost get into delayed Smyslov attack or system, possibly some kind of alternate Averbach. You could play b4 going into the bayonet, although not exactly. That's not recommended here in this particular position. That would not be a good move. But at any rate, let's continue. So, black castles, bishop e3, and note that uh, while that's the perfect square for that bishop, it's not necessarily the perfect time to play that move. Much more normally, we see the f1 bishop go to e2 square, um, or even the d3 square. But that's the thing about the King's Indian. It's very flexible and has a lot of move order elbow room, if you will. So if you don't. Now, having said that, if you mess up in certain areas of your variation, you're just worse. Period, and you're not going to probably ever come back to equality unless black blunders. But at any rate, let's find out what happens. So this is a little bit slightly, ever so slightly unusual, ever so slightly, and black thinks, oh boy, and that's also one of the purposes of this move is to sort of goad black into playing this g4 move, obviously thinking, oh, I'm going to munch on your delicious dark squared bishop, which is very important for white. And we're going to go ahead and move that to g5, which is where the bishop likes to go in many systems, such as the Smyslov, other systems as well. It's not totally uncommon in the Zamish, although normally it wouldn't be on g5. Normally, white likes to get on the d2 square and then ram it up to h6 and look to trade those bishops off. But at any rate, black kicks white's bishop, h6, and we drop it all the way back to d2. And you may think, well, you haven't really accomplished as much development as you could have if you didn't, if you weren't mucking around with these crazy moves. But remember, this is a trap line. This is not a traditional, regular, classical setup. Black plays e5. We close the center with d5. Knight d7, developing. Bishop e2. Um, a5. And here white could have played a3, a4. Could have gone knight b5, looking to possibly munch on the d6 pawn. But Castle's the strongest here, so castles. Knight goes back to f6. h3, preventing the knight's return. Knight c5, coming down into white's camp on the queen side. Queen c2, telling that knight you cannot have the e4 square. Takes, 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 and then queen e4, and then I don't know what black's plan would be from there, so that's not going to be working. Instead, knight goes all the way to the h file, knight h5. What's black's game plan? Well, I didn't care what black's game plan was, so here I played g4, which is hyper freaking aggressive. And normally, this would not be a good move. This is normally a bad move. But that's the beauty of traps. When they work, they really work well. And so you're thinking, well, let's just see. Knight comes to f4, stating, well, you can take me with your bishop, and I'll just take back with my pawn, and everything's hunky-dory. And obviously, it's aiming at the h3 pawn. So we did just take it. And black takes back with the pawn. And now king h1. And Komodo thought this was a bad position for white. And normally it would be. But let's see what happened. Black played h5. Looks like a good strong move because, well, after that move, which was played, it looks like white is inviting, at some point, visitors down here. If only black could get rid of this knight on f3, then this tender h4 square would be wide open available. So what happens here? Bishop does come down, grabs that h3 pawn, and it looks like white is pretty bad, not so hot. Rook g1. G takes h5. It looks like black is still in the driver's seat. e5. f5. Probably a subtle mistake by black. But black is still much better. And instead of taking, we just push the pawn to e6. Bishop g4. Knight h2. c6. f3. Rook b8. F takes g4. Goodbye, bishop. H takes g4. And what should white play here, guys? Bishop takes g4. Pawn takes. Rook takes. Rook c8. Rook g1. And what was a few moments ago a crushing position for black, well, I won't say crushing, very advantageous, shall we say, is now a lost game. I can promise you that any grandmaster, any super grandmaster in the world, if this were a classical time control and had plenty of time, they would look at this for about, I don't know, 1 to 2 minutes and resign. It's that bad. There is no way out of this position now for black. I don't care who you, I don't, even Kasparov, even Magnus, there's no way out. Assuming that the white player is a, 2700 club player. But this is basic. Guys, this is a basic. This is so powerful. Even a 1600 player would beat Magnus or anyone of that if they had this position, which is just flat out losing. Queen comes to e7. Knight f3. Maybe not the most obvious move in the position, but it's extremely powerful. Rook f6. Rook h4. Look where that queen is aiming at, guys. h7. King f8. h7. We just mentioned that. Rook exchanges on e6. Pawn takes. Knight takes. Knight g5. And there's that queen check on f5. Bishop blocks. Knight up with check. Bishop is pinned. King comes down. Other rook is gone. Queen comes off. And it's just really just technical. Check. Goodbye, bishop. Now we can stop. We can force Zugzwang by playing b4, which is what is played. Black king has only literally one square to move to, and then it's irrelevant which rook you want to give mate with. In this case, the g-file rook. And that's mate in 49. So let's see, backing up, there was another. Yeah, here, instead, if you want to just keep it really simple, you could just take the bishop immediately and just play something like this. This doesn't have to be the exact move order, but you get the idea. And we're just pretty much running the black king into a mating net on the left-hand side of the board. And here we go. Next move is mate. That's checkmate. It's cute mate in 54, just a little bit longer than the other one. Now backing up, I also wanted to see if, let's see. Yeah, you could have also obviously ended the game like this, and your advantage is not nearly as crushing as the other one, but it's totally winning, that is for sure. I'll just give a sample line. That's brutal. That's a resign type move there. And literally, I mean, it's however you want it here. We're just gonna, and that's yeah. This move is the best because it's what I call an offensive fork. It's forcing an exchange because of check. Well, maybe it's not forcing the exchange. Okay, whatever.
Checkmate.
And that would be mate in 45. Ooh, that's quicker than the original mate that I showed. So that's actually a very, very much improved model. Of course, here again, normally you would see this type deal in a lot of games.
Okay, checkmate.
And that would be made in 46. What else? I thought I saw some other cool variations. Just What word? I'm trying to remember. Oop, I think I've gone too far. Yeah. Yeah, here also, I think this could have been played here, if I'm not mistaken. And that's almost as powerful as what was played in the game. And we can get rid of that knight. Preparing H-file power. The bishop is pinned. There goes the black queen. I think here I could just probably do this. We're just going to nibble on those pawns. Get the king safe. Bring that knight in. And it's fixing to be lights out here in a couple of more moves. New queen doesn't help black
Checkmate.
at all. And that's mate in 46. Oops. What else? Let's see. There was still another. I thought there was another variation I wanted to briefly show you guys. Let's see. Well, even here, for example, I think even this was playable here, if I'm not mistaken. And that's a really cool move. You would want to take the knight before taking the queen. That check gets our queen out of the pawn pen, or whatever you want to call it. And white is simply going to crush black here, albeit not quite as quickly as in the other line, but and this trade does not help black at all. We're going to, you know, basically move this guy. We can just start coming up to it. There's a variety of ways to play this, obviously. Mm. I'm wondering here if even this would work. Yeah, that works. B5. Just go and play B5. Now so we'll work that king around. Act like we're going for that pawn, which we are. And now, obviously, it's lights out for black because we do now have the passing pawn. Black doesn't want to do that. That's a losing move there. So let's at least pretend black, does something semi more useful. Oops. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yeah, we'll just pretend that's this type of deal. So even if it's an imperfect game, obviously, then we don't need to finish that out. White has a queen. Black's getting mated, whatever. So, and then also one last style line. You could just do this, and this is not nearly as powerful as the other lines, but it's still totally winning. So even if you weren't that good at chess compared to like the 24, 25, 26, 100 club type player, much less world champion level caliber players. this is enough. This is enough to probably convert the win, and we'll see what a given line was. I mean, could be. I'll take that pawn. Trading here is a great idea because it just weakens black's counter strikes. Now we have a, let's see, RG3. King gets to a safer square, freeing the knight. Trading off. Knight gets more active, threatening the bishop. Trades. Okay, come back to f3. Let's see, is that really the best in that position? I don't know. I kind of like king f3 here. Let's try that. And you can simply see here, guys, we don't need to run this line out. White is up two pawns. I mean, excuse me, up a pawn and up a piece. And it's going to be lights out here in just several more moves for black. Obviously, real life IM or Grandmaster or even FIDE Master would probably almost guaranteed resign in this position because it's simply losing. There is no way back out of that. So just kind of run these guys up. And we can give that rook away because the pawn, well, queen.
Checkmate.
And that's mate in 81. And granted, that's the worst of the variations, but I just wanted to show that even the worst is good enough to win, assuming that you can make still good moves, if not great, and go on to convert. But let's get back for one last look at the at this main line that I'm calling the bishop's trap in the classical. Remember here, this move uh, will probably goad many of your opponents to play this move, thinking they're going to munch or at least kick that bishop out and maybe get some pawn action going on the f file or the bishop, something. I don't know. And kicking the bishop, d2 is the perfect square for it there. Closing the center. Bishop on e2, getting the queen out of the necessity to be on that diagonal. Castles. Knight goes back. h3 prohibits the knight from returning. And then we see the knights sort of do this pincer crab attack, each one taking a different side of the board. And g4 here, highly committal. And when you play like this, it often goads your opponent into playing irrational chess because they think, there must be, I must punish white. And Black here, I guess, assumed, oh, I'm going to nibble on that h3 pawn. No, you really won't, because we're just going to take you off. And normally this is not a good position, but Black got a little carried away, a little overextended on the h file. And Black should not have allowed the e6 push, because here this is the beginning of the end for Black. Goodbye bishop. Goodbye g-file pawns in toto for Black. And that move, coupled with this move and that move, and Black can resign. Ah, yes, I wanted to show one last variation. In fact, I'm glad we got to this point. Let's see, what was it? Yeah, here I think yeah, here we had this cool move. Which I kind of like this a little better. Because, in fact, well, I think here is it. Well, we need to be a little careful because of checks. Not sure how good this is. After this check. I wonder if this is working here. No, that's not working. That's too much. And Black is back on top. So I guess here, unfortunately, queens once again have to be traded, but no big deal. The knight's coming in with, at some point, devastating effect. Check. Getting out of the way. Check. Ooh, yeah. Beautiful fork. And that's way cool, taking with the rook instead of the knight. Check. Form a column of power. Oops, and there goes the rook.
Okay, checkmate.
And I think I may have muffed it. Let's see. Oh yeah, here b4 was a little more accurate.
Ha! Checkmate.
But that's just saving one move. I don't know that anyone cares. um, what else? Queen g3 was another interesting try that you could have played here. And now Black is just down a piece and has very little to show for it. You just trade them off, whatever, and go into a typical, end game with a rook versus nothing and a pawn minority, but it's of no moment as black is just going to get mated in several more moves. Um, all right, well, that's going to do it, and I hope you guys enjoyed some of the unique ideas, and I will, as usual, leave you with a rapid look at the game, and you can take notes and try some of this out next time you play an online game or a tournament or a blitz game or however you want to do it. But I thought it had some really cool, kind of tantalizing ideas in it. Do keep in mind though that I don't think Black should have played h5 here, so he probably could have found something better. Like what? Let's see. Yeah, Black probably should have traded off for the knight on c3. I think that would have been better. Rook e8. Okay, it's a typical move. Probably a little bit better. Because this is just really weakening here. Even though Black is still showing a magnificent edge. Well, not a magnificent, showing a strong edge, I should say, even with this move. Still, because this move invites that move. And then after Rook g1, White is just starting to consolidate. Um, that move also was pretty bad by Black. I think Black had quite a bit more in the position, something like Bishop g4, Rook e8, Queen d7. This is probably somewhat of a positional blunder. Uh, and then getting desperate, I guess, to take something. And after f3, the piece is just for free, basically. Well, I guess not in the context that okay, Black gets our bishop as well, but we cleaned up two more pawns in the duel, so definitely no compensation to Black for that trade. And there was, I think, did I show you guys this Queen G2 move here? This was a little different, where the Queen then quickly snuck to H3, and then the Rook on G4 came to H4, and pretty much forcing the Queen off. And again, you'd have most players in a tournament just resign after that move because it's going to be pretty much hopeless after that. So we can look at this line, which is way cool. Knight's gone. Black is simply down a queen and a piece. And I think for my 2 cents, if Black does that, you know, I'm just taking. I don't care what. I'm just going to take. And we're going to do this. And this. Oh, wait a minute. Did I miss something sweeter? I think I missed something in the position. No? Maybe no. Let's just gonna make another queen.
Checkmate.
And that's mate in 51. But okay, if you want to be fancy about it, you get out of check with king f2, pawn e7. And now the bishop can't even take because of the pin. And mate in 50. But just to go back and finish according to how the game actually played out was this variation. Lots of good ways to finish your opponent off when you're just so superior positionally and with piece activity. A relatively safe enough king. Maybe not ideally safe, but safe enough. And White played a little bit fancy, a little bit tricky. And this next move forces Zugzwang and mate. So, of course, you could have mated with that one.
Checkmate.
Alright, guys, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed some fresh ideas in the classical King's Indian. Best of luck in your chess, and until next time, keep chessing.